Night with a low of 65. Sunshine again tomorrow with a high of 92. Clear Thursday night with a low of 70, then sunny and hot Friday with a high of 98. Mike Jackson, WSIC News.
Well, good afternoon, Lake Norman, and welcome to Town Talk. We're coming to you live from WSIC, the Real Talk studio, nestled on the banks of beautiful Lake Norman, streaming worldwide from Quito, Ecuador to Goose Creek, South Carolina. I'm your host, Bill Russell, president of Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce, the largest chamber of commerce in the Charlotte region. This is a program where we discuss topics that are impacting your family, your business, your neighbors, from my neighborhood to yours. And my guests today are former Huntersville Mayor and State Representative Drew Saunders and Jessica Tucker, the Executive Director of Angels and Sparrows. But before we get started, I see we got the General Manager of the studio. And this morning, we challenged Justin Kazepis to a batting competition at D-Bat in Huntersville. Justin was saying about 3 weeks ago where baseball was just a little bit boring. It didn't find a whole lot of things to do with baseball. So we've challenged him to a batting competition. D-Bat is in a controlled atmosphere where it can't get too hot or too cold or complain. He just can't get that bat swinging. But we're going to have Bill, who's on the sticks in there, taking care of us. He's going to umpire, making sure that Justin stays in line. And we're gonna bring the heat. We're going to see if he's got his A game on. What do you think about that, Drew?
Well, if he thinks baseball's not exciting, he hasn't been watching the Braves lately. So.
There you go. You a big Braves fan?
Oh, yes. So.
Jessica, you like baseball?
You know, I'm afraid I feel the way Justin does.
Oh, no. What is your sport? What do you like?
You know, I'm really into F1 racing, actually, Formula One. I love it.
Okay, yeah. Well, this is NASCAR capital of the country right here. So, yeah, racing's good. Yeah, like that. Drew, I want to get started with you. Former mayor of Huntersville, you were on the town board, I think, 85 to 87. Then 87 to 89, mayor of the town. And we were just chatting, and you were telling me things before the show that I had never known. I remember when I arrived up here in 1996, some of the first town board meetings I went to were at the old Huntersville Hospital while they were preparing to build the new town hall. But you were telling me where the town hall was that you met in it, and share a little bit about that.
Well, of course, when I first moved to Huntersville, it was a small town, but it was on the brink of growth. We had a town hall that was now where the parking deck is for Discovery Kids, and it was basically a mill house, old shotgun type house, and we met in the front room. And there was just room for the board. If people wanted to speak to the board, they almost had to wait out on the porch and then come in. So. But we did, when I became mayor, we did move the town hall over to where the old police department is now, but not in that building. It was a building that Dr. Martin had, and he leased it to the town, and we used that for a good number of years before the new building was built. So,
and the population for Huntersville about then was about 2,500, 3,000?
Yes, I think I won the mayor with like 800 and something votes. So a big turnout. It was a big turnout, but it was about 800 something votes.
So 3,000 people thereabouts living in the town, and today 70,000 people.
Exactly.
And Jessica was just asking before we got on, did you see that coming?
Well, you could sense it was coming, maybe not to the extent that it is. But at that time, the most traveled road in North Carolina was Highway 21. That was before Interstate 77 opened. And once 77 opened and we had the lake and accessibility to the Charlotte job market, you could see that it was going to grow. And so we put together a zoning plan for the town with the help of the League of Municipalities, and we were able to pass that, and they used it, I believe, until maybe 10 years ago or even less than that.
And you were also sharing, and again, a story I'd never heard before, that there was consideration, albeit brief, about combining the three towns into one town.
Yes, and I can say this I think everybody that participated may be dead now, so maybe Sarah McCauley could correct me on this, I'm sure, because Sarah knows more about this than I do. But my understanding was that the three municipalities here in the north wanted to get together and have a one town, one municipality, and that they actually got to the legislation for it. And then one of the mayors backed out, and it never came to be. So.
North Cross, that was something that was planned in your administration?
It was. At that time, Sam Fur Road was just a place for automobile accidents. It was a bad crossroads, top of a hill, going both ways. And we had an opportunity to encourage the Department of Transportation to open that interchange there. It was scheduled for another place up this way. And but the developer was able to do some of the construction work on preparing it to be done, and we were able to do that, and that's how the development happened there.
Drew, we're listening and seeing the natural disasters and in Maui and then also in California and the things that they dealt with, but you dealt with an issue of your own, and that was Hugo that came through in your time.
It was, and there was no place to go to check to see how you handled something like this. But it hit rather unexpectedly. We didn't expect it to be here. We didn't expect it to be as severe as it was. We were fortunate to have a really good town manager at that time that could handle projects. And it was amazing of the help that we received almost immediately. People coming in to help out. So, but it was not a good time, but it did tell us who we were, and we survived it, and I think we're better off for that. So.
What are you most proud of from your time as being on the town board, either as mayor pro tem or mayor? What is the thing that you look back on and say that was really good what we did?
Well, I think the development of a zoning ordinance to certainly not to stop growth, but to plan it, have it be the best use for the properties that we had and for the community. Also, at that time, we had a water and sewer department that was deteriorating drastically. It was going to cost a lot of money to bring it up to code, and we were able to negotiate with CMUD, which is the Charlotte Utilities that handled water and sewer, and they took it over, and that was a big move for us. And that also allowed us to continue to grow and develop.
And almost from the time I got here in '96, the next year you went on to you were elected to the State House, 97 to about, 2008, 2009?
Yes.
And
12 years. 12, yeah.
Right. You know, I don't know if I've ever shared this. You told me something that I have never forgotten. And you said it was a political lesson that you learned, and I'll have you talk about it a little bit more in depth. But what you said is never, ever burn a bridge. Yeah. That the person who may be on the opposite aisle tomorrow or the opposite end of an issue may be somebody you need tomorrow. And I have seen people throughout my career who burn bridges, but you're someone who's never done that. And when we get back from our break, I want to really talk about that. I want to talk about the years that you were in Raleigh, some of the things that you were able to do, because you were the transportation chair. Yeah. And a lot of things that we got done because you were in there. But I want to talk about where you learned that little bit of wisdom and that advice, because again, that's something that I've really taken to heart, really used. I want folks to stay on the line with us. Those of you who are streaming, we're going to talk about some Chamber of Commerce activities. But we're here with Jessica Tucker. She's the Executive Director of Angels and Sparrows, and Drew Saunders, former mayor and rep with the state of North Carolina. We'll be back on WSIC's Town Talk in just a few minutes. Stay with us. For those of you who are streaming with us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, We've got Drew Saunders, who is the former mayor for the town of Huntersville and former North Carolina representative. What district was that, Drew?
Was 55 at that time. It changed over
55.
time. Became several different numbers, but basically North Mecklenburg.
And Jessica Tucker. And Jessica, we're gonna talk about Angels and Sparrows in just a minute. But while we have folks with us streaming, we've got our Chamber Business Expo coming up on Tuesday, October the 10th. That's going to be at the Huntersville Recreation Center. That's going to be 11 o'clock to 5 o'clock. That's where we have about 112, 120 businesses in one place at one time. It's Lake Norman Show and Tell. We've been doing that since 2001. So it's a fantastic opportunity for us to be able to showcase our business community. Then, Drew, on Thursday, October the 12th, we're having our candidate forums. The first one is going to be in Cornelius. Again, Thursday, October the 12th. It's going to be for the 2 people running for mayor in Cornelius and the 10 town board members. And then because the field is so large in Huntersville, we've got to have 2 forums, Tuesday, October 17th and Thursday, October 19th. We're going to have the 3 candidates for mayor on Tuesday, probably with 5 commissioners, 5 candidates for commissioner, and then the balance will be on the Thursday. We're going to have to draw names out of the hat, so there's no favoritism in that. Justin Kazepis, who is the owner and general manager here of WSIC, is going to be our MC, moderating that particular event. That is open to the public. We encourage the public to attend. The questions actually do come from the floor. Drew, you've attended some of those forums that we've done over the years. How important do you think having candidate forums for candidates is?
I think it's very important. First of all, I'm not sure people understand what the duties of a commissioner are and how they coexist with the county and with the state and with the federal government. And it's a good lesson on government. Just come and listen, and it's important that you have good representation. Local government probably has more impact on your life than any other type of government, and that's saying a lot because they're on the ground, they're there, and it's very important.
Well, we're coming back in just a second on Live WNSSC.
Chamber President Bill Russell on the new 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Well, welcome back to Town Talk. I'm Bill Russell, your host, and I have Drew Saunders, former mayor of Huntersville, also former state representative Jessica Tucker. She is the executive director of Angels and Sparrows. And Jessica, I'm very familiar. Most people are, but there's probably some that goes like, well, what is Angels and Sparrows? What is Angels and Sparrows?
We are a community table and a resource center. And by that, I mean that, we address food insecurity for families in the area. So we provide a nutritious meal. We deal with food issues. And then we are a resource. We're kind of a hub because people come to our community table, they form a community, and we provide that connection that they need to all the various resources to help make sure they can stretch the dollar and get through just the daily challenges.
Lake Norman is looked upon as being a very affluent, very wealthy community, but there are pockets of poverty in our particular community. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I think it's hard to miss because, this is such a beautiful area. But if you drive down, different streets and find little pockets of neighborhoods, we do have a lot of families who are living below the federal poverty line. And, in our community table, we serve over 500 families in the local area. So they're out there. I think we're fortunate that we're in the Lake Norman area where people have heart and they care about their neighbor. And so we're able to extend our community table to these families.
The whole concept of Angels and Sparrows was something that Sandy Tilley, she had a vision. Can you talk a little bit about Sandy and what she did and then how the early volunteers got behind and created the presence that you have today?
Sure. I think she was so wise and she may not even thought through how she was doing it. She just knew inherently that it needed to be with dignity. And so we do it restaurant style, which is, I think, different from probably what most places do across the country. And so our guests are greeted, they sit where they want, a drink is brought to them, their food is brought to them on a tray, and a dessert tray afterwards, there's conversation, there's community. And she established that from the very beginning. And like I said, I don't know if that was her intention. She just knew it inherently that that's what our families needed. And so, because of that foundation, we're able to build on that, the relationships, not just with them, but then the connection, the community. There's a bond of trust that's formed there with that shared meal.
Jessica, how many volunteers does it take to really pull off what you guys do?
We have about 200 volunteers. It takes 17 to 20 volunteers a day, Monday through Friday, to make it work. And then we also need volunteers, for a couple of special things that occur on the weekend with regard to, food donations. So it takes the community to be involved.
Whether you live in Statesville and you've got the Christian Mission, or you've got Feed North Carolina that does the same type of thing, and in Mooresville. Jessica, talk about why it's so important that people who live in a community who may have the means to supply their family, why they need to be able to get involved and donate or give to something like Angels and Sparrows.
I think that people would be surprised at who is affected by food insecurity.
Mm-hmm.
It's your server at your favorite restaurant. It's the person checking you out at the grocery store. It's the person sometimes cutting your hair. Or, there are situational circumstances that set a lot of people back, and they might live in a beautiful home, but you have no idea that they're struggling. So for us, it's a complete no judgment. It's, someday you're the angel, as Sandy used to say, someday you're the sparrow, but we come together in community working together. And so I think it's important to make sure you're involved and that you show your neighbors that you care, because they're going to care for you as well, if you're ever in need. And I think that it's just one of the most beautiful things about the Lake Norman area is that people are willing to get involved.
Drew, as a former mayor of the town of Huntersville, it must make you feel really good to know that we have an organization like that continuing to serve the town.
Oh, I think it's very important, and I think they do a good job. I'm happy to meet Jessica, and it's much needed.
Jessica, you guys have moved beyond just serving meals. Talk about the resource center that you now have established.
So the Resource Center houses our Pathway program, and that was established just based on the fact that we know food insecurity is just one symptom. So our families, if they're food insecure, they're likely housing insecure, they're likely transportation insecure, a lot of different challenges. And the root cause of it is poverty. We're just not able to obtain a livable wage in the workforce. And so the Resource Center, our Pathway program, provides foundational education courses for adults with the aim of increasing the household income as quickly as possible, but at the same time making sure that we nurse the genius within each child, because we really want to affect that next generation. The thing is that a child's future and their is interconnected and interdependent on the adults in their households. You have to address both the adults and the children at the same time if you want to make change.
And before you now have a master's in nonprofit management. Before you did this, though, you had a manufacturing background, and you also you were a realtor. You
Right.
still have your realtor license?
I do. I don't use it, but I do still have my license. It took so long to get it, and you take classes every year to keep it. I just don't want to let it go.
What inspired you to kind of shift gears from sales and that to giving back into the community the way you have?
I always wanted to volunteer, and I started volunteering with Angels and Sparrows while I was still in real estate. And I'm not going to lie, being in real estate was fantastic. I got to work with who I wanted, went to lunch with friends, traveled when I wanted. It was great. What I found was that when I was volunteering and working with the families, those were my happiest days. And so when you look at how you want to live a fulfilled life, then it isn't always the route that seems the easiest or the most luxurious. Sometimes it's just getting in there and working hard and feeling better than ever about what you're doing.
We were talking this morning about what are some of the things that people can do. Obviously, giving money because cash is king. That allows you to be able to do some of the things that you do. But what are some of the things that people can do to volunteer for Angels and Sparrows?
We always need food drives, honestly, because we're heading into the holidays, especially right now. It's why it's on my mind. But food drives are always needed. We need volunteers at our community table, and we need volunteers as reading buddies in our literacy program at our Pathways program.
And Drew, before we turn back and get into politics again and some of the things you're doing, you too have a charitable background. You were involved in the Lions Club. Are you still involved in the Lions?
No, not at all, but spent a good number of years there and did a lot for the community.
What were some of the projects that the Huntersville Lions Club did in the town of Huntersville?
Well, of course, they deal with the blind and the people that have difficulty seeing, but we raise money for that, and some of the youth camps that that the youth could go to. So.
When we were on break, we were talking about the candidate forums, and Jessica, you're from Davidson. Davidson is not going to be having a candidate forum because we have 5 people running for 5 slots and 1 person running for mayor. So that election is, for all practical purposes, done. We'll probably have a meet and greet. But what is it you enjoy living about living and working in the Lake Norman region, particularly living in Davidson?
I just love the small town feel of it. You know, we have so much going on and we have access to so much, but if you go down, to downtown Davidson, it's still family oriented. You see kids running around, music playing, people in and out of the coffee shop and the little shops, and it just feels very Americana, very wholesome and beautiful and safe. It's just enjoyable.
Do you ever get a chance to go down to the farmer's market?
I do quite often.
And it won't be very long before we're cranking up Christmas in Davidson again.
That's right. And that's always a lot of fun, too.
Yeah, and concerts on the green, do you ever participate in any of the concerts?
We do go to them when we can. It seems like we always tend to have plans, during that time frame, so we're not always able to go. But again, that's just another wonderful feeling where you're in community with your neighbors and you're just enjoying some good, wholesome fun.
Drew, we were talking about how large the field was in the town of Huntersville running. You got 16 candidates. It was 17. We had one back out that's decided not to run. I don't think they can take his name off the ballot, so he's still there. But 3 people running for mayor, and you were talking during the break how that's a great thing because it just shows people are interested. Talk to me about why you think it's great to have that many people running.
Well, to just have people to run. Sometimes it's difficult. You have to go out and recruit people to run. But to have the interest, I think every one of them has the best interest of Huntersville at heart. That maybe there's some newcomers, maybe some that have been there a while, and we can mesh some good ideas that will be good for all of us. The town, I believe, is doing a good job now. Our Parks and Rec seem to always have something going for adults, seniors, and children. So I think it's important to become a part of the community if you're going to be there. And the best way to do that is get on the board, and you'll do it. So.
Drew, I was sharing one of the greatest pieces of advice you ever gave me when I traveled up to Raleigh. And I got to tell you a funny story about going to Raleigh. In 1996, annexation, we were looking at, and I think Charlotte was trying to change how annexation occurred. And so we went up there to Raleigh and met with Senator Fountain Odom. And Fountain took out a cigar and clipped it and started to light it up. And I'm thinking, is he going to smoke that in here? And he said, "Boys, would you like a cigar?" And he handed us, and I'm going like, "In here?" And he said, "Son, this is Raleigh." He said, "This our capital was built on tobacco." But he proceeded to say, listen to us as we talked about how we didn't want any changes to the annexation bill. And then he said, "You do know that I'm a sponsor of this annexation bill." And we said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Well, don't worry about it. It ain't coming out of committee." So he was sort of playing both sides there. He sponsored the bill, but he had it stuck in committee. He wasn't going anywhere. But welcome to Raleigh, where sometimes things don't happen for a reason. But I was sharing with you that one of the pieces of sage advice you gave me was not to burn a bridge. Who told you that?
John McLaughlin. John was my predecessor. He was a postmaster at Newell. He was very folksy. He was a very good representative. And he took me under his wing and showed me the ins and outs of Raleigh. Of course, you never get them all. You have to experience some of them. But he also said, never vote against a bill unless you have a prevailing reason to do it, because you're going to ask somebody else to vote for your bill. So, but he gave me a lot of good advice. I tried to follow most of it. So.
Well, that is great advice, and it's great advice that all of us can use. When we get back, we're going to talk about your career and some of the things that you did in Raleigh, particularly improvements that you made here. For those of you who are on the radio, please come back and join us on Town Talk on WSIC. As we're going to break, we were talking about some of the things that we're doing in the Chamber of Commerce, and we talked about the candidate forums and the Business Expo. But we're also coming up in September 14th. We're going to have a diversity luncheon where we've got Beth Bledsoe. She's with MSC Industrial Supply, who is going to be talking about re-engaging veterans into the workforce. And it's one of the diversity programs we put on. We also recognize our diversity champions, which I think Angels and Sparrows has been recognized as diversity champion. We recognize the individuals, the nonprofits, the small businesses, and the corporations. Jessica, why is it important that we recognize corporations and individuals who practice diversity and inclusion in our community?
I think it just solidifies the community in general, breaks down some barriers. It's got to be great for small business. The consumer wants to see that businesses are involved and care about the issues that are important to them. They'll travel with their dollars, to another store or another product if they don't feel values are being backed up. And so I think it's important to see that, all the organizations that are involved and care.
Drew, we also tomorrow have a meet and greet at Home Trust Bank. It's going to be 8:30 to 10 o'clock, Home Trust Bank. It's an opportunity to meet Reagan Randall, who's the new branch manager, Diana Richards, and the outstanding staff at Home Trust. For those of you who are in the Cornelius and Lake Norman area, that's right beside Chick-fil-A. So come on out tomorrow. That's Thursday, 8:30 to 10 for a meet and greet. Then we're having a ribbon cutting at Ortho Carolina, noon on Friday, which is the Hamptons Park Drive in Huntersville. So again, Ortho Carolina, we're going to be having a ribbon cutting and come out. At the end of the month, August 31st, 5:30 to 7, we have a business after hours at Advanced Wealth Strategies. That's Douglas Marion and his team. It's an opportunity for folks to come out, network over a social environment. Networking is a big component of what we do at the Chamber of Commerce, and it gives people an opportunity to meet others and showcase their business, but also to expand their contacts. The Chamber is also accepting applications for Leadership Lake Norman. That is a program that we have that looks, for 8 months, it looks at various aspects of our community, everything from government, crime, law, to healthcare, to economic development, community infrastructure. But those applications are on the website. September the 8th is the deadline for Leadership Lake Norman. And we created a junior Leadership Lake Norman about 10 years ago for high school juniors. So if you've got a student who's just entering their junior year in one of our Lake Norman high schools, whether it's public, charter, private, or homeschooled, they're eligible. You can get the application on our Chamber's website at lakenormanchamberofcommerce.org. For those of you streaming, thank you for joining us, and we're going to go back to live radio in just a few seconds.
880 with over 30 in stock to pick from. Randy Marion Ford Lincoln right here in Statesville, I-77, exit 49B. Come get them while the selection's the best.
RandyMarionFord.com. Now, more Town Talk with Lake Norman Chamber President Bill Russell on the new 105.9 100.7 WSIC.
Welcome back to Town Talk. I'm Bill Russell, your host. I have Drew Saunders, who is the former mayor for the town of Huntersville, also North Carolina House of Representatives, and Jessica Tucker, Executive Director of Angels and Sparrows. And Drew, we were talking a little bit about your past career as mayor for the town of Huntersville, but you served about 10 years for the North Carolina legislature. You were chair of the Transportation Committee. You were ranked 16th, I think, in most effective, although I would have ranked you number 1. But I tell you, the one thing that you struck me is you were never, in my opinion, a very partisan person. You were always a moderate guy. You worked with both sides of the aisle. You always put people above politics, in my opinion. And a lot of transportation projects that we're seeing today were because of the things that you put in place then. Talk about some of the years that you were in Raleigh and some of the things you're most proud of in that tenure.
Well, one is the ability to get a hospital built in Huntersville. We certainly saw the need for that. At that time, to do that, you had to go through what called a certification of need. They had to have people come down from Raleigh and talk to the citizens and see if we really needed one or not. So they came down and they set up at the county building in the heart of Charlotte to talk to people in North Mecklenburg about their needs for a hospital. So we protested that after the meeting, and I think that helped us move that forward and get it done. Now, I don't want that to sound like I did it myself, but I was certainly part of it. And anything you do, you have a lot of help from other people. So.
And there are a lot of variations that a lot of people may not know. We had a Huntersville hospital at one particular point that was really moved over to the university area. So it wasn't that we lost it, but it wasn't located in town anymore.
Right.
And then we went through several variations of that certificate of need.
Yes, and that was turned into a long-term care facility. And at one time, Town Hall was actually located there. So.
You had, I think at one point, you had Northeast Medical Center that partnered with Presbyterian on it, and then the Presbyterian ended up going at it alone. And then, of course, Presbyterian became Novant, and now we have Novant Hospital, Huntersville Medical Center. The other thing that the improvements, I never will forget this, the improvements to Catawba Avenue here in Cornelius. Mayor Southern and manager Bob Race had told DOT that they would get the right-of-ways taken care of if they would go ahead and expedite the project. So since the right-of-ways were taken care of, DOT said, okay, we'll expedite the project. And then they didn't have the right-of-ways in their pocket after all. And DOT came in and they had a certain number of leftovers, but it was not, they were going to be putting medians really in front of all these businesses. And I came to see you and Representative Beverly Earl. And I never will forget Beverly saying, have you talked to Senator, wasn't it Senator Brubaker?
Yes. No, Representative, he was the Speaker of the House.
A Representative Brubaker. And he said about what he did with putting something in the budget bill. And I'm like, well, why would you put that in a budget bill? But you were able to get those leftovers. And because you were able to get the leftovers, we had the businesses that willingly donated their land, so you were able to expedite that project.
Well, we worked through the Department of Transportation, the Secretary, Norris Tolson at that time, and Norris understood what we wanted to do. Speaker Brubaker was in favor of it, so we were able to make a move. It did. We had to talk to a lot of people to get it done, but it was done. So.
Drew, the other thing that you did, we had an old county prison right on Mount Holly, Huntersville Road that was operated for a while, and then it just sat there with nothing, and you were able to get that turned into a useful facility. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, the prison went out of business. I hope that meant the crime went down. I don't know, but the prison went out of business, and there was a move by a lot of people, especially in North Mecklenburg, that wanted to buy and develop the property. But I encouraged them to hold on to state property, and the state's not going to sell property unless they really have to. But we needed desperately a DMV up this way and a magistrate. We were able to convince them to use the property to build a DMV on, and it's working very well. We still have not gotten a magistrate up here.
No,
I would still like to see that happen. So,
Jessica, again, we were talking about Angels and Sparrows and some of the wonderful things that you're doing. Share with me a couple of really nice success stories of things that during your tenure that you've seen that you're really proud of.
I think just the way our families come together at the community table, honestly. Like if I'm feeling down, crazy day, if I stop in at the community table and just visit with our guests, I'm so full in my heart all over again. I think I love the way our volunteers and Sherry Allen, our operations manager, just ensures that culture continues regardless of who's present. You know, we have a couple hundred volunteers. So to maintain how beautiful that feels inside the community table, I think that's quite a feat, you know, with various personalities and people coming and going. And so I love that we've maintained what Sandy started over the years. And I think we've grown it, actually built on top of that. And that's why we're able to do so much more with these families.
And I don't think we've actually said where the facility is located. Now, you have two facilities now, so share where the community kitchen is and then also the resource center.
So the community table is at Old Statesville Road and Rhema Church Road, so kind of at that cross center. You can't see us from the road, but you'll see our sign out at the street. And then just around the corner on Rhema is the Rhema Executive Park, and that's where our resource center is located. So you can literally walk from one location to the other location.
And what kind of meals are served? It's just breakfast and lunch, right?
It's just lunch.
Just lunch.
It's just lunch, but it's basically a home cooked meal is what our guests are receiving, and it's something that our volunteers most likely are cooking in their own homes. We want to make sure it's nutritious and that it's well balanced, and that if we wouldn't serve it to guests in our own home, we don't serve it at the community table.
And the times the kitchen is open?
Monday through Friday from 11 to 1.
Okay, and the resource center?
So the resource center is 4 days a week, and we have a couple of we have some classes that take place during the day, but most of them are in the evening because people work during the day, and so they're attending their courses at night. That's Monday through Thursday. Those classes run between 6 and 8.
Drew, the town has really grown over the course of your tenure. When did you move to Huntersville?
Oh, it's been 48 years, 50 years ago, so it's been a while to move from Derrida down in Huntersville. To Charlotte up to Huntersville.
When you see some of the things going on at Town Hall, particularly the social media that's out there in terms of, and sometimes the rancor going back and forth, what is your perspective? If certainly we didn't have social media in 1988, so how swayed were you and your board to people that came to the town hall meetings to speak on a project?
Oh, very. That's what you're there for. You represent them. The best way to represent someone is to know what they think. You don't always agree with what they think, but you do get support, and you also get some pushback on what you do. And normally the pushback has some depth to it. And if you don't stop something, you at least can adjust it somewhat. So the main thing is on growth. It's going to happen. You can't stop the growth, but you can manage it. So if people have property, they want to be able to have the best, highest use for it, and they shouldn't have the neighbor telling them what that's going to be necessarily, but there is a way to do that through the zoning.
And some of the projects that we've had recently, you've got Burkdale with the improvements they tried to make. It was voted down in terms of moving forward on that particular project. What are some of your feelings in terms of the growth that's taking place in the town right now? Are we moving too fast, or not fast enough, or just about right?
Well, the older I get, the faster it gets. So just driving up here today was an experience. But I think they are managing it fairly well. There seems to be a lot of condo-type buildings, but that's all over every place. It's not just here. People complain about the traffic, which is legitimate, about schools, which is legitimate, but the schools and traffic patterns never come before development. Development comes first, and then the roads, and then the schools. And you can have developers help with the roads somewhat, turn lanes and that kind of thing. But you just have to manage it the best you can. It's going to happen. So,
Drew, is there a memorable moment for you at a town board meeting? We got about 60 seconds. Is there a memorable moment?
I guess I had when I was mayor. Only time I had a vote was to break a tie.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd never voted. We always had a consensus or whatever. But the election was the next Tuesday, and we were meeting on Monday, and they all voted that we meet that night, and I had to break the vote that we didn't meet.
Well, when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about your career and some of the things going on in Huntersville. And Jessica, we're going to talk a little bit more about Angels and Sparrows. What a tremendous job that you do. For those of you who are watching and listening out there, please come back and join us on WSIC Town Talk. So, Drew, are you familiar at all with our Leadership Lake Norman program?
I am, yes.
And Jessica?
I didn't know about it until you mentioned it at the nonprofit summit or roundtable the other day. It's very interesting. I love the idea about the junior program as well.
Now, you have been participating for quite a while, and one of the things, Drew, that we do is I guess it's been about almost 6-7 years we've been doing nonprofit roundtables. We had 3 of our significant nonprofits have their gala events on one weekend, all at the same time. And you had one on Friday and 2 on Saturday, and you can't attend everything. So we started getting our nonprofits together, and we go around the room and we talk about what are some of the things that we are doing as nonprofits, and and then who we are, because you might have, like, Angels and Sparrows might know all about Ada Jenkins, but may not know about Beds for Kids or one of the other nonprofits in the area. So what do you get out of the nonprofit roundtable?
I love just hearing what's going on with each of the nonprofits. I always feel like I have a good handle because, we partner with a lot of other nonprofits, but then there's always like a new person who shows up talking about something or a program going on. And I love it because, my brain is constantly racing. We're connectors, so we like knowing what's out there and how we can maybe collaborate with each other.
Drew, we were talking about the formation of the Chamber of Commerce. 1987 was when the Lake Norman Chamber of Commerce got its start. That was when you were on the town board. Our chamber is a little bit different than most chambers. The 3 towns were just as involved in putting the chamber together as was the businesses. And so on our incorporation paperwork, Sarah McCauley's name is on that. So the towns were very involved. Why did you think it was important that we have a Chamber of Commerce in North Mecklenburg?
Well, because of the growth primarily, and sometimes you feel like you need your own voice rather than depending on somebody else. And I went to some of those meetings when we were getting together to do the chamber, and certainly supported them.
Well, those of you who are streaming, we're going to go back to live radio in just a second. Thank you for being with us on Town Talk.
Friday, it's going to be sunny and hot with a high of 95 expected. I'm Nick Rice from WSIC's Weather Center.
Call now to speak with Lake Norman Chamber President Bill Russell at 844-STUDIO-4. It's Town Talk on WSIC.
Well, we're back at Town Talk. I'm your host, Bill Russell. I'm here with Drew Saunders. He is the former mayor of the town of Huntersville, and former state representative Jessica Tucker, who is with Angels and Sparrows. Jessica, a little while ago, you were talking about the Pathways program, but it's got a year under your belt now, right?
Mm-hmm,
Talk about some of the successes of Pathways.
Oh, it's fantastic. So I was just reviewing the results of our testing, because we do a baseline test, we kind of test the mid-year, and then at the end to see what progress is. And for our adult students in the English as a second language class, we had 88% of them improve in English comprehension and 50% increase in reading capabilities. Our conversational English had 88% across the board. Comprehension, reading, writing. We had students, it was so beautiful to watch them standing up and giving presentations in English, using PowerPoint. They didn't even have computers before our program started. Here they are using a laptop. They're presenting on a screen, in English. It was just so beautiful to see that progress among them. And then 91% of our youth and teens improved in or maintained in reading and math scores. So we're just so proud of the progress they made in just 1 year in the program.
Something not really under your purview, but something critically important is affordable housing. Drew, we still have folks who work in our community, teachers, policemen, firemen, who are not able to actually live in the community that they serve. How important is it that we have affordable housing for our community, particularly here in Huntersville or throughout the Lake Norman region?
It's vital. As you said, some people cannot afford to live in North Mecklenburg based on the kind of work they do and the salaries they have. And so it's important that we carve out a place that we can have decent, good, affordable housing for those people.
Jessica?
Yeah, absolutely. It affects all the families that we serve. Our families make an average of about $18,000 a year. and 38% of that is spent on rent. And I know that's only climbing. So there's just a severe shortage in our area.
If we made you king for the day and you had a magic wand, you could do anything. What would you want to do right here that impact the residents and people who live in the Lake Norman region?
I think housing is critical. I mean, it's foundational, but I think that what I would do if I won the lottery, because I've thought about this, I think I would create a coalition of our nonprofits that were actually funded so that, we all work together as best we can. But if you had the funding you needed, wow, we could, we're boots on the ground. We could really create a system that makes sure that our families progress, forward, that they're not stuck and they're not scraping by. We want them to thrive so they can keep contributing to the vibrancy of our community.
And if somebody wanted to volunteer, how can they volunteer?
And go to our website and just sign up. Our volunteer coordinator takes over from there.
And why is it important, do you think? Because, again, we talked about you were in the manufacturing career, then you were a realtor and you kind of switched gears. Why is it so important that business people give back to the community?
Oh, I think you just want to affect the next generation, right? We all were fortunate, I think even at my age where we did better than our parents did, and America's losing that, and for me, I have a strong feeling that should not happen in America. People, I talk to people, friends from Europe or whatever, they're like, no, America, people still think you can do that in America. I'm like, well, it's getting harder and harder for families to do so. And not from lack of trying and not from lack of desire, but just there are just certain barriers and things have made it more difficult over the years. And so when businesses give back, they're giving to our future.
Drew, we talked about, your career. The country seems to be so partisan. You look at whether it's in Raleigh today, whether it's across the country, and we're having certainly a debate tonight with the Republicans. What's your perspective on where we are at as a country in terms of the partisanship that you see?
Well, I still think there's good people that want to serve, and good people are serving. My experience with the two-party system in Raleigh was that we didn't necessarily want different things. It was just the way that we got there. And if you have to talk to each other, as I said, even my opponent has a good idea once in a while. So you need to have an open mind and something that you want that they may be opposed to, just an adjustment to it may work. And same way on that side. So, but even in Raleigh, you could be having a good debate, and then the cameras would show up in the committee room or in the chamber, and the crazies would jump up, the extremes from both sides. And basically what they wanted was a sound bite.
Right.
But there were a lot of people working in the center to get things done, and government did move ahead there. But mostly what you hear is the bad, but that's what it is, so.
Drew, we talked about what were the things that you enjoyed most about working on the town board in Huntersville. What, looking back in Raleigh, what was the thing that you were probably proudest of in your achievements in Raleigh?
Well, the things that we talked about already, but also the completion of I-485.
Yeah, 45, yeah.
Half of that, or about 2/3, had been done, and we were on the plan to have our part done. And there was a bill that came back from the Senate that we'd sent over, came back, as we said, was lit up like a Christmas tree with a lot of amendments on it. And one of them was that the money for the construction of 485 North would be diverted south to widen the road that had already built there. Since I was the chair of the transportation, the bill came to me, and as Fountain said, it never saw the light of day. So.
Transportation is critical to our infrastructure and everything that we do. You did a fantastic job as chairman of our transportation committee. What are some things that you would have liked to have done that you didn't get to?
Well, certainly the light rail. I was all in on that, and I still don't truly understand why we couldn't negotiate a deal with Norfolk Southern on that. But that especially would be the main thing I'd like to see.
We have toll lanes today. Do you have any feelings? Are you using the tolls that we have in place?
I am not, but I understand the need for them.
Right.
we did have a interstate interloop in Raleigh that was already built, and some of the members there wanted to make that a toll road, and I also held that bill because to me it was already paid for. It was just a way to make money. But I understand the need for tolls, and you can move faster to take care of the traffic patterns by doing that.
I asked Jessica just a second ago, is there one thing that you would do if you were king for the day now? Is there one thing that you would like to see done in the Huntersville, Lake Norman region?
Well, I think what I just said, we would have a light rail running frequently. All the roads would be terrific. Schools would be built all over the place. Everybody would be happy. Would be so. Yeah, that would be it. So, but seriously, I commend our town and our people on the board, the work that they've done. I think they have the heart of Huntersville at their heart, and I commend them on the work they're doing.
Now, Drew, when you stepped down from the legislature, you didn't retire, and I'm not talking about the honey-do list. You actually had a little career as a lobbyist working for Electric Cities. Some people may not know what Electric Cities is. Cheryl, what is Electric Cities?
Well, actually, I retired 4 times, so, and I think this time it stuck. But Electric Cities is a municipality, the electric system for a municipality, and it was started because it was hard to get the power companies to come and do that into small towns. It was kind of like the rural electric people that did it to get electricity there, but this was done in the towns. And a lot of people think that Electric Cities purchases power from another provider and then resells it. That's not the case. Electric Cities has their own power. They own part of the Catawba nuclear plant. So it's a good thing. It serves us well. I've been a member of it the total time I've been in Huntersville, and it's always providing good service.
And Drew, you're a Navy veteran, Guantanamo Bay. Tell me a little bit about your Navy experience. What did you serve on?
Well, I was actually at the naval base in Guantanamo on the 10th Naval District, worked for the Admiral there. And but I was there when Castro came to power. I was there when he lined his troops up along the fence and closed the door. But it was good service. I enjoyed being there, but I was there 2 years.
Okay. And again, the thing that you enjoy most about living here in Huntersville, you've been here for 50 years?
Well, I think the things that Jessica said, even now, it still has a small town feel. If something drastic happens, you can expect your neighbor to help out. It's just a good feel, and they're doing a lot to preserve that feel too, I think.
And you enjoy still playing a game of golf?
I do. I played yesterday. So very well, as a matter of fact. But I'm paying for it today with Tylenol and all of that. So.
Drew, we yesterday had a ribbon cutting at the Chamber of Commerce for Hook It Golf, which is an indoor training facility or driving range located in Huntersville, so you can go out and practice your golf game. Jessica, do you get involved in any sports?
No, I don't, actually. Like I said, I'm pretty much a Formula One fan and Ohio State. I do watch Ohio State with my husband.
Oh, Ohio State football.
That's right.
Okay, all right. But aren't you a South Carolina graduate?
I'm not.
I thought I saw that.
No,
I saw that somewhere. Well, again, I want to thank you, Jessica, for the job that you are doing as the executive director of our Angels and Sparrows. And Drew, thank you so much for all the years of service to the town of Huntersville, to the state of North Carolina. And again, for that political insight that you shared many, many years ago that's served me well as Don't Burn a Bridge. I want to remind everybody, if it's Wednesday afternoon, we're talking about our towns on Town Talk on WSIC. We'll see you next week. And Drew, thank you for being here. Jessica, thank you for being here. Have a great weekend, everybody.
The new 105.9, 100.7